Hey friends, welcome to the shop. Today we're working on cutting boards. I know everybody's built a cutting board and we all know how to build one of these. It's a square. We cut a whole bunch of slats or 3/4 inch, whatever size fits your bill, and we put them together. Just glue them and clamp and plane and sand. It's super easy. But is there a way that we can up-level our cutting board game? So let's check it out and see if we can do that. Okay guys, here it is. This is what I've been working on, and I thought it was really going to be a simple project. It was going to be an easy cutting board like the one I showed you in the intro. That was just simple, straight boards, glue them up, sandwich them together, voila. And there it is, easy peasy. But this thing, although I like the outcome, the curves are really neat, and the inlays with a couple of different colors. I got purple, which is purple heart, yellow heart, and then also I have black walnut in there. And it looks really nice, but man, this thing, I thought this was going to be an easy project in between my last project and the next one I've got going on, because the last one was pretty intense with creating the picture frames out of walnut, these giant picture frames. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. So I thought I'd just take a break and create some cutting boards, for one from the family and one for another purpose, actually for an auction. And I thought, yeah, this will be a simple little project. Turns out I had so many things go wrong, not because this was a problem, but just other things. So we'll get into that, and I'll show you some of the things that I ran across that might be a problem and why you might consider not doing something like this. Man, words are hard. If you're trying to sell these, because I spent a lot of time on this thing, more than I had anticipated, but some of that was probably just because of the struggle. So let's get into it, and I'll show you guys some tips and tricks that I use to do this, but also some of the problems I ran into as well. So let's get going. As you guys can see, I'm using maple, purple heart, yellow heart, and black walnut for this cutting board. There's actually a fair amount of millwork that needs to be done just because of all of the cutting. So we had to cut not only the length, width, but all of the pieces, since I made this an edge grain board rather than just a face grain board. I normally don't have that separator on my table saw, but this maple had so much tension in it that it was really binding at the back when I was pushing it through the blade, so I had to put that on to reduce kickback. And I did let the maple set overnight, just in case there was any more tension that just needed to adapt to my environment to eliminate any issues. Evidently I forgot to show you the glue up, but it's a standard glue up.
Okay, we're finally getting to the point where we can start milling down our secondary wood and get that ripped apart and start to resaw that. But I ran into a problem. Went to resaw and my blade was complete garbage. So I had to order a new blade. Actually ended up getting that from Highland Hardware, their super slicer or whatever they call it. It's a pretty good blade. It had 3 TPI and it went through this wood super smooth. Highly recommend the blade. Here I'm creating my first template. You'll notice later on that I end up using something a little thicker. And then my second problem was my router wouldn't turn on. And of course, the 2 bits that I had would not work. For whatever reason, Bosch decided to use a non-standard size. Finally got it off, and there was a bunch of dirt in the toggle. So once I cleaned that out, I was back in business. And now we're making our first cut. So this is a relief cut so that I have something to follow when I separate the board. And we'll take this over to the bandsaw now. And when I started cutting this, it's super nervous during this because never had done this before. But the idea is that we separate the parts and then use that guide that we use the router to be able to use a straight bit and trim that. But you'll notice there was my third problem. My straight bit was not tall enough. So I was able to get around that for this one just by flipping the board back and forth multiple times. It took forever, but I finally got it. But after that, I decided to order a new bit, and you'll see that when I do the second cut. One of the things that I did that I think is super helpful is I made the secondary wood intentionally wider than the maple so that I could just take the router and cut it down to almost flush. And the boards that the board is setting on, it has reliefs in it so that the bottom they can stick through as well so that I have a stable board. But the router smooths that up. And then I actually took it to the planer to take a little more off, and then the final sanding, and then actually got out the hand plane, which was kind of cool. Okay, here's the second pass of my second cut. And so you did the same thing as the first procedure, make the relief, and then go through the bandsaw, and then you'll see that I have a new pattern bit here. So I had to take that pattern bit so I could get down far enough that I could then go back to the router with my straight bit and then clean the whole thing up. So finally got that working, and it turned out to be a good solution. There's lots of sanding with this project, and I didn't show you that. If you've ever built a cutting board before, you know how much sanding is involved. So once I got through the first round of sanding, I popped it with some water, which raises the grain, let that dry, sanded it down again, and then put on some oil. After this oil set for a couple of hours, came back and put some a mixture of mineral oil and beeswax and some citrus scent on it.
Well guys, got it wrapped up. Just wanted to go over a couple lessons learned when I was building this. So, love the curves, really fascinated with curvature and wood design, and I think that will help build your skills for one. So give it a try. So first thing to think about when doing this is don't be real aggressive with your curve. So the outline of the curve here, just make sure that you're not too aggressive, because that could create a challenge when you are trying to put these back together. So I had a little trouble on these ends down here, wanting to separate. I was a little aggressive with that, but I think if I would have taken care of the second point that I wanted to make, is make sure that your pieces of wood that you're using for the bent lamentations are as thin as you can get as well. So if you can try to keep it around an 1/8 inch or 3/16, I think you'll have good results with trying to bend the wood between the pieces when you're putting it back together. So that was the second point. The third thing is, when you're doing these kinds of things, allow some extra room. So allow a little bit on the width of the board, because you're going to have some waste, and you want to make sure that you've got enough wood hanging over for when you bend it, because this wood is not the same as this wood. It's longer because it's bent, obviously. So keep that in mind. So you want to make sure that you give some extra width when you're building this type of board. And then finally, I like to make a little bit thicker board as well. So some of the cutting boards are maybe, I don't know, 3/4 inch or an inch out there. Give this thing some mass. It kind of separates you apart from the other cutting boards out there. So think about that. Think about the design. You want it to be pleasing. Think about the colors you're going to use as well, and then give it some mass. So with those pointers in place, I think you guys can have some success. It does take some time, and you'll have to decide if this really makes sense for you to build to try to sell, because in your market, I'm going to say, if you're not charging $300 or up, it's probably not going to be worth it, because of the time that you have to take with making the multiple cuts and then bending together, gluing it back together, and all of the sanding prep work that's involved as well. But don't let that hold you back. Whatever you do, just get out in the shop and keep on building.